Hello, my name is Muddy, and have you ever thought that even if you aren't some amazing inventor, or some crazy famous person, or something like that, entrepreneur, or whatever, every single choice you make changes basically the future of mankind? Even if it's not something big that you change, like a group of families' day or something. Like, you talk about something, anything, like that will cause someone to think about something different, causing them to do something different, causing something different to happen than if you didn't talk about that thing, which in turn will cause a larger ripple effect, possibly changing the future of humanity. Everything you do matters in the world. I'm gonna go not sleep for 10 days now. Anyway, I'm trailing off. So anyway, this video is a bit different from my other videos. This will be a talk video. I've been wanting to make some commentary videos, so what better way to start those off by telling you guys the lore and history of my novel. Yes, I've been writing a novel for about half a year now, but I've barely gotten started on the actual novel itself. I've been just doing the history and the lore and stuff like that, so this is far from finished. So, this is set in an alternate reality on Earth, so not everything is completely historically accurate, okay? Yeah, so, here's a bit of the history. During what we know as the Cold War, in 1962, the Soviet Union transported their nuclear weapons into Cuba. US President John F. Kennedy saw this as a major threat and in response declared war on the Soviet Union. Nuclear bombs were sent, detonated, and chaos ensued. The UK, France, and China joined in the nuclear action by 1964. All three increased production of nuclear warheads by 20% due to the new World War III. But when I say nuclear action, I really mean a few nuclear bombs launched a year, one or two. Because no one was very content with sending an abundance of bombs because the knowledge of nuclear fallout and a nuclear winter, no one really wants that. This made a lot of room for traditional warfare. Now, I think it's due to tell you who was allied with who. So, the new allies included the UK, France, the USA, Australia, Italy, Finland, Sweden, Spain, Japan, India, Canada, New Zealand, Brazil, South Korea, Turkey, and many more smaller countries like African countries and South American countries. Now for the Red Alliance. Russia, the entirety of the Soviet Union, China, North Korea, Afghanistan, Iraq, Iran, and some other smaller countries. Yeah, this is incredibly unbalanced. The Red Alliance didn't stand a chance, but they put up an incredible fight. First, the united forces of the UK, US, France, Finland, and Italy freed the countries controlled by the Soviet Union, including Germany, which then joined the Allies, and then attacked the Western European border of the Soviet Union. The large forces hit hard on the Soviets, but they weren't unprepared. The Soviets fought strongly and held their positions for about 24 months. But in March 1966, the US, Australia, Canada, New Zealand, and Japan all combined their forces to launch a seaborne invasion of Russian Siberia. The Soviets, being incredibly shocked at the sudden attack, were forced to move many forces to the new Siberian front, weakening the forces on the European front. By the time the Soviet reinforcements reached the Siberian front, the Allies had pushed them back to Mirny, which is a city around central Russia. Although the media had generally shown amazing Allied victories with joy across the Allied nations, In reality, by the time the Allies reached Murney in October 1966, they had received 600,000 casualties. Eventually, in 1968, the Allies had taken Moscow. Although this may seem like an amazingly quick victory, that was not the last of the Soviets. Combined Russian and Chinese forces had camped out and fortified a massive, kind of like a fortification bubble around the city of Syktyvkar, which is a city in central Russia. Eventually, the Chinese realized it was incredibly difficult to get to their allies' territory, since they had to constantly transport troops and supplies through Mongolia, and the Mongol government began to refuse transportation through their territory. So, in turn, the Chinese invaded Mongolia. With China occupied with Mongolia, the Russian forces were being slowly weakened with a large Allied siege, and very little supplies coming from China due to the now US-sponsored Mongol War. This caused the almost complete demise of Russia. The Allies sent all forces into the sieged Russian base. When the Allies attacked the remaining Russian forces, it was a very quick victory. In only 4 months, they were at the heart of Syktyvkar. The Russian forces proved useless to the combined armies of the Allies. The Russians surrendered, and the people of many countries rejoiced. After 2 months of debating, the Allies decided how to split the Russian territory, leaving some room for a small Russian republic. The territory is on the screen. Now, the reason it is split out this way is so that if the Russian government gets any very fishy ideas, the Allies can easily, with the 3 main superpowers of this reality, being the UK, US, and Australia, they can just easily, boom, push in and take Russia again. But before the territory negotiations even began, something crazy happened, something that shook the earth. An Australian Special Forces squadron returning from the final battle of Syktyvkar were attacked. The Australian squadron was dubbed the Dingo Squadron for their ferocity on the battlefield. They were returning to their base camp a few kilometres out from Syktyvkar. Due to the war, telephone lines were cut and all means of communication were out. So the Dingo Squadron were the first to communicate with the outside. So, to declare victory, the squadron climbed to the top of a mountain and launched a plasmo, which is a rifle that fires a coloured smoke grenade, which then fires a flare, hitting the smoke grenade and making a beautiful light show, usually used to declare a victory. Celebration roared through the city, and the squadron was about to head back down the mountain when they heard horses galloping up the mountain, except these horses sounded as if they were 10 times the size they were supposed to be. Freaked out, they all got into battle positions, thinking this was some crazy Soviet comeback, and prepared for the worst. Then 3 massive scaled creatures with feathers all over stormed up the mountain and instantly began attacking the squadron. In short, these creatures were later named as Gefideks. With the one Astrolovenator tank they had, they knocked one down the steep mountain edge, killing it on impact. They fired a flare into the face of another, causing it to retreat back into the forest below. And after the last 2 human survivors faked dead, the last one left. A few minutes later, the injured survivors heard the humming of army vehicles heading up the mountain. Then they heard roaring and explosions from below. They were later informed that the reinforcements that were sent from below had ran into one of the leaving Gephidix and killed it. The two survivors were treated as soon as possible and were labelled as national heroes for surviving an incredibly unexpected and unexplainable attack. Now, I'm going to leave the whole Gephidicial apocalypse part to later because that's basically an entire other era to this era. Because in short, and as a quick summary, the Gephidix almost take over the entire world, and other creatures are introduced due to radiation, and yeah, I'm not going to spoil too much. So, I'm going to have to make a second video on that, because of that reason, and I think this is already too long, or it isn't, I don't know. Either way, I don't care, and I'm too lazy to do more for this video. So yeah, goodbye, have a great day, and don't snort bird dandruff. You'll regret it.